Hi, I'm Grace,
And I'm Nicole.
and we're students of the PFW Music Industry Program.
Thanks for watching the second episode of our Women in Music Industry podcast, where we interviewed Marlo Owczarzak.
Marlo Owczarzak is a local artist from the Chicagoland area, and she makes indie pop and bedroom pop music.
Thanks for tuning into this episode, and stay tuned for more in the future.
So I'm Grace, and this is
I'm
Nicole. Yep.
Hello.
We are students at Purdue Fort Wayne in the Music Industry Program, and we decided to start our own podcast about women in the music industry. So,
If you want to just give us like a quick introduction about like what you do, what you're passionate about, stuff like that.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Marlo Owczarzak. I am a singer-songwriter, and I have a project that I released in 2019. It's an EP called Broken Lyrics, and I released a single in 2020 called Cities. So I write all my own stuff. I like to say I do my own stunts. I'm, independent musician, which means I have to do all the marketing, the visuals, the writing, the singing, all that stuff. The only thing I don't really do is produce. I go to a studio. So that's kind of like in a nutshell what my role in the music industry is. And I'm from Indiana, and I write a lot in my notebook that I've had for 10 years of my life or whatever. So I'm just kind of figuring it all out as I go.
Awesome. So do you like being kind of the person that does it all, like doing all your marketing and all your stuff yourself?
I think so. There are definitely times where I want to pull my hair out. Like, it's a lot. And a lot of times where I'm like, I want to give up on Instagram. It's not worth it kind of an attitude. But in general, I'm a very like big picture. I like a creative vision. I often refer to all of my music and visuals as like the Marlo universe. And I like being in control of that narrative. And I do not like people telling me what to do. So I really do enjoy that aspect of like controlling all aspects of what I'm putting out there and what I'm calling like my own work. So I do
Right.
like it.
That's definitely understandable, like being able to control it all. But then also there's like that risk and reward of also having to be the one doing all the work too.
Yeah, absolutely. Or like I sometimes will put like deadlines or pressure on myself, and then I have to reflect on it and just be like, well, no one's actually pressuring you to get this done by Friday. It's okay if you wait a day. Like
Right.
the only person who wants this done is you. So
yeah, that's the beauty of being like your own boss in that sense, that you get to set your own deadlines and but you also at the same time get to work at your own pace,
yes.
So
Which also affords a lot of procrastination. So there's a lot where it's like, I think that I work well under constraints, and I feel like a lot of times being independent is very much like no one really, it's not that I have fans or people aren't caring. It's just like there's no one asking you to get a new project out other than, my friends and family who are like really following up with what I'm doing. So there's a lot of times where I'm like, this project seems too overwhelming to even start, and I will not continue it until I feel like maybe I need to get something else out. You know what I mean? So there's like that whole aspect of it too.
yeah.
So do you find it kind of hard to like get motivation and inspiration to do projects and stuff when you're not, when that pressure's not on you from other people on your team?
Yeah, I think so. My mom, I currently live with my parents again because of the pandemic. And so my mom is around all the time reminding me how I need to get something going again, that kind of pressure. But I do like it. Like I feel like without it, I would just be floating around in like big ideas land and never get anything actually accomplished. So
Right.
I need it.
We know, especially as like students in a music school, we know a lot of independent artists, and there's just a lot of there's like a community, but at the same time, like my boyfriend is an artist as well. He's a producer, and he does get stuck in a rut of like, oh, well, only the people care about me, care about my music.
Right.
So, I guess what my question would be like, where do you see, like, who do you think your like target art audience would be past like your family and friends?
I think, well, I know from my Spotify statistics and some of those like social statistics that I have a majority of women listening to me. And I think that aligns with what I write about and who I like to interact with. You know what I mean? Like that kind of music sphere of like, kind of like a nostalgic soft pop, or sometimes I say indie folk. Like, I feel like I draw a lot of like folk influences, pop influences, and maybe even some musical theater influences as well. So I'm often like thinking that will mostly appeal to women-ish my age. And just like that demographic of, I feel like I appeal to more of like, not even necessarily women, but people who are very like in touch with feelings. Like that, there are some people who don't really get it. They're like, I'm not crying on the floor every day. So your song, I'm Lost, doesn't make sense to me, which is fine. I love that for you. But for me, I'm a very emotional person. So I think a lot of my work centers around like nostalgia or crying or like sadness. I have very sad girl vibes. So those are the kind of people I'm trying to reach as well.
Yeah, for sure. Because like art in general, like especially music, is about like it's like intense feelings is what is written about
Right.
in a lot of time, whether that be like a breakup song or something, or another love song, but like speaking your truth into it just makes it more than just another breakup song and another love song, you know? And
Yeah.
like if you really convey and really channel your emotions into it, it can make something really special and really unique. So,
Do you ever
Yeah,
feel like
absolutely.
a little bit like intimidated, or like people don't take you seriously because of your demographic? Because I feel like a lot of people, when they have like a younger demographic or like mainly women, it's always like they're put down about it. But it's like, I mean, those people need content. Like it's not like, and like
Absolutely.
that's just who you relate to. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I have always been screaming into the void of, so I don't even necessarily make pop music that is like, would be considered commercial pop, but like I love, maybe not everything on the radio, but I like big pop artists. I love Lady Gaga is one of my favorite artists, for example. And so I have been screaming into the void for years, like this narrative of like people who like pop music or even top 40 or whatever, that it's somehow like vapid and like it's, you're not intelligent enough to understand real music, air quotes, whatever that means. I've always hated that narrative. It doesn't make sense to me because I sat down and tried to write a song today, couldn't do it. And it's because the simplicity of it is so incredibly difficult. And I don't think people understand really what goes behind writing something. So from that dynamic, I've never understood that narrative because I feel exactly as you described, where it's like these fans are dismissed. And I think women and young fans and teens and teen girls and anyone that has more feminine energy, like they are often dismissed as like the crazy fan who, you know, is boy crazy or whatever the traditional narrative is. It doesn't make any sense to me because they're influencing the entire industry. So clearly they should be taken seriously. So as far as my fans, I do think, I'm not sure how it's perceived necessarily, but I feel intimidated or self-conscious sometimes where I'm like, oh, this is such like a whiny problem that I'm having and I'm trying to write about, like this doesn't resonate. You know what I mean? Like people aren't going to get it, or they're going to think it's dumb, you know, like all of those feelings of like sharing those feelings, especially from like a feminine kind of perspective. I do think about it a lot.
Right.
Still, at the same time, even like in the pop genre, there's still there's still hunger for everything to be fresh and exciting at the same time.
Yeah.
Like if somebody sees a fresh face in their, even though some songs maybe it's sounding a little similar to like previous pop songs, there's still like that want and hunger for like new people to be welcomed into that into that
Absolutely.
genre. But at the same time, it is gate kept pretty hard
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well.
That's for sure.
um do you, as like a woman in the music industry, um do you find any like hoops you got to jump through a little bit more, or like you have to work just a little bit harder, I guess, just because like you're a woman, or like because of the you've already talked about like the stigma of what the music you
Right.
kind of music you make, but I guess do you find it a little bit more difficult being a woman trying to like, put your foot in the door?
I think I have been very lucky. And again, like I have a very limited scope of projects. I've only been doing this for 2, 3 years. And I also have only worked with like one studio in Chicago that I love. I've had a great experience. But I do think I put a lot of that pressure on myself where it's like I'm very conscious about what I'm doing as I go into the studio. Am I prepared enough? Am I this? My constant narrative is that I'm not good enough, the classic imposter syndrome type thing. But if you really, I'm a big fan of behind the scenes content. Like I'm always watching other people in the studio, like how they make things. I like process and I like to consume art and see the behind the scenes process of how things are made. So like if you watch stuff like that, a lot of it is very much like no one knows what they're doing, and that gives me a lot of confidence. But I think there is some kind of like confidence barrier where maybe it's me as a person or maybe it's me as a woman in the industry where it's like I feel like I have to be giving my 100% ready to go when I show up, and I'm trying to let go of that a little bit more and push that boundary and see like what happens if I show up and I only have half of an idea. Will these people react in the same way? Are they still willing to help me in the same way? Are the resources going to be the same? Like what's that going to look like? I'm not sure. So I know from the beginning, my first EP, I came ready to go, notes, color palettes. Like I was like, here's a full visual portfolio of what I want this to sound like because I didn't have the vocabulary. And so that's something that I have noticed going into the studio and things like that.
I know a lot of the time with like producers, they do try to push the artists that they're working with a little bit out of their comfort zone. So I guess in a way, that if you were to come to the studio and say like, I have kind of an idea of what I want, where I want to take this. If you are paired with like the right producer, it could be extremely like they could take you to a whole new place,
Yeah.
and you wouldn't even imagine yourself there, but here's this like great song that all of a sudden you have come up with together with your producer, like it
Yeah.
based off of like a little bit of like a spark of an idea. So, I mean,
Yeah. In one of my songs off of Broken Lyrics, Ingrid's song, it's a song I wrote about my sister. Um, at the very end, I whisper, I love you, Ingrid, into the mic. And
yep,
it was like one of those moments where it was like, I was very much like, oh, I have this idea. And he was like, what is it? Like, it's stupid. I don't want to do it. Like, I'm nervous. And he was very good about it in the sense where he was like, no, you have to do it because we have to at least try. And if it's dumb and you don't like it and you're uncomfortable, we take it out. Okay. I went over there. It's like me alone in the booth. And he's like, it was only just us two in the studio at this point because we were trying to finish the song. I'm notorious for adding things on at the last minute. And he was really pushing me to do this. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to whisper into the mic. He's like, okay. And I couldn't do it. And so I asked him, he turned off all the lights. He was like, just pretend I'm not here. I'm like, okay. And it's like whispering into the mic by myself. And then it was so like, the feelings were like, it was weird. And so I get out of the booth and I walk over and he's like, I have to take a walk for a second. He was like tearing up. It was
so
one of my
sweet.
favorite moments. So like I love that idea of like I need those people to like the producer or some I had on Cities, we brought in a composer who made like a 4-part string quartet. And that was crazy because I was like definitely like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to imagine a string quartet that goes in this piece. So like having that unknown element being brought in was a really good test for me as well to push those boundaries.
Right. I feel like so much of that is like building up a rapport with people around you, like producers and people on your team and stuff. But it's also kind of, I guess, it kind of sucks that that's just something ingrained in our mind is like, we have this idea we want to execute, but we're so worried about like looking stupid to someone else or like inconveniencing anyone that we'd rather just not like execute that
Right.
idea or even attempt it just because we're afraid of looking stupid. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that holds me back a lot in just in writing, or if I'm at a stage where we're refining something, or that's something that my 2021 goal is to have confidence, blind confidence, as if none of this stuff matters to me and I'm just going forward. And I won't say that I'm there yet, but I'm trying my best to get there.
I've been told that just kind of word vomiting onto the page, like even if it like sounds like, oh, that's stupid in my head, just like getting it on the page could like transform it into something pretty great. And like,
Yeah.
and if you honestly brought that to like a producer or somebody who's helping you write, they could see the potential in it and like bring it into a different way. And that's like the whole beauty of like writing songs is that something that you go, maybe not, could actually be like your top song on Spotify one day.
I know, it's so crazy. I still can't believe I have songs on Spotify. You know what I mean? It's like a very you watch YouTube and you're like, I love YouTube content or whatever. And it's like content creator, oh haha, that's whatever, it's a job. I can't believe that. And then you're out here. I mean, I am trying to make YouTube content. I'm like, I guess I'm a creator now. I don't know. Or like, I love music. I want to make music. I sit in my room and I write songs. And now it's on Spotify. And it's like that, even it doesn't matter even who's listening to it or who's looking at it or if no one's looking at it. The fact that the music industry has changed so rapidly in the last 10, 20 years that someone like me who's sitting in a room in Indiana with absolutely no connections can have something that's a published work of art that is easily accessible to people is crazy. I can't believe it. So absolutely, who knows what's going to be the next thing that you write or you say or you sing or whatever that could end up as something. So
Did you kind of get that feeling after you released all your stuff on Spotify? Did you kind of feel like, okay, what now? You know what I mean? Like feel that pressure of, well, now I have to do something else, something bigger, something better.
yeah, my first feeling was like, my biggest fear was that this entire endeavor would be extremely embarrassing for me, that it was going to be received poorly, blah, blah, blah. Every internal fear, especially as an artist, where you go through those highs and lows of like, this is the best thing I've ever created, and to I hate everything I've ever created, like that cycle, of course. But post release, I was just like so excited and full of adrenaline that like I did something and I was very proud of it. And it was being received well, which is I was concerned about, of course. And then it was like, I'll probably never ever write a song again. I have run out of ideas. I don't know anything else. Like, all those kind of pressures start to build, or like those fears start to manifest too. So, but it's not true. You just have to ignore those thoughts and keep going.
Mm-hmm. For sure. But you also can't like at the same time you can't like force yourself, because
Yeah.
then you're just going to be stuck with a bunch of things that you don't necessarily like. And I know that kind of contradicts my previous statement, but
No,
but
but
like
you have to like throw everything out there and give it a try and then pull from it and try to make something good.
Mhm. Exactly. But it's also it can be discouraging as well, I guess, if you're just
Yeah.
like, I hate everything I put down. Like,
Yeah.
but it's definitely just like you gotta keep that inner drive. You gotta keep pushing yourself because like we have dreams. Like all three of us here have like dreams, and like the only way to really like get them done is just you gotta put the foot put the work in and just kind of put your foot down. That's what
Yes.
I was trying to say. And just get her done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like above anything, I feel like it's doing what feels right and like doing what, or trusting your gut and doing what feels right for you above anything.
Yeah. I bet
Absolutely.
like I bet releasing that music, like you just kind of have that feeling where you're like, oh, I'm finally in the place that I'm like wanting to be, like I'm doing it. And like that feeling has come to us too a couple times, just like one of our first classes our freshman year, we were just like, okay, I can relax. I'm in the place I know I'm supposed to be
Right.
in,
Yes.
It's such a, like,
I love that.
it's such a, like, relieving feeling once you kind of, like, go, yep, I'm doing the right thing, And it's just, that's even more motivating at the same time.
I think so. And I think it's that sense of like coming back to why I was even doing it in the first place, or like why I pushed myself to do, like looking back, you're like, all these worries manifest and all of this like fear is involved along the process. And then just stepping back and thinking, well, I only did this because I wanted to try something. I wanted to prove to myself that I could finish a project, one, two, make something that I was very proud of, three, make something that, started a world building of like, this is a collection of work that I think relates and has a story narrative and all those like artistic elements. And four, I just wanted to do something that made me happy. And then if you reframe it, consistently try to remind yourself like of those feelings of like, oh, this is where I was supposed to be, or like I finally did do what I wanted to do, like it makes it all worth it.
Yeah, 100%.
So have you found it more or less difficult to be content creating through quarantine and everything?
I was barely writing until 2021. Like, not that I was very consistent at writing anyway. It's like a practice I'm trying to build. But in all of quarantine, I was like, I have absolutely nothing to say. Like, that like those, it's still going on, but the feeling of just like overwhelming dread, crushing, you know what I mean? Like even the sad feelings or like anxious feelings I was feeling, I couldn't even write those down. So I barely wrote at all, but I was doing a lot more like visual stuff and trying to do, streaming or performing and trying to do some other things that were, I don't know if easier is the right word because I don't think it's easy, but I think sometimes it's just like using your brain in a different way. And so maybe it's more of like an active procrastination. You're like, I'm not writing, but at least I'm doing something. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think it's been pretty hard for me. And I've been getting overwhelmed pretty easily, but I've learned a lot of new stuff. And whether that's like TikTok or marketing, or I started a course on piano again and like those kind of things, I think that kind of skill building has been really helpful. So it's a mix.
Right. Did you do a lot of live performing before quarantine?
I had just started to get some momentum.
Oh, that's
And of
awful.
course, and of course, my hopes and dreams were dashed. but I had at the end of 2019, I did a show, a So Far indie show in Indianapolis. When I say indie, sometimes I confuse myself by the indie music genre, so I have to always clarify. It was an Indianapolis So Far show, and that was really fantastic. And I was starting to apply to more So Far shows, which are, for anyone who doesn't know, like an intimate listening environment, where mine happened to be in a like public space that was a photography and videography studio, but sometimes they're in people's living rooms and things like that. So by no means was a big show, but for me, it was a big show because I had just released my EP and was trying to, I had just moved to Indianapolis and I was, starting this journey of live performing. So that was one of my big shows that I was hoping would move forward into that bigger live performance type path. But of course that didn't happen. But that's okay.
Well, I guess now that things are starting to open up again, slowly but surely, like hopefully you'll get more opportunities
Yeah.
to put on
I, of
something.
course, have that fear of like, I don't even remember what that's like. But I'm very much like, I'm a performer. I love being on stage and like being in front of people. And I think that's one aspect of my personality that really thrives like in the whole singer. Like some people really, they're like, I want to write, I want to make the music, and I do not want the celebrity or like public persona aspect of it at all. I don't care. I want to be in front of everybody and, sharing everything. So I'm really excited for that to happen again.
For sure. I know that there's like open mics happening in Fort Wayne, right? So I think things are starting to get there a little bit,
Crossing my fingers.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else?
So I guess in your future, do you kind of see yourself sticking with more of the small venue kind of stuff, kind of performances, or is your big dream like arenas and performances like that?
I think originally it was like I'm talking like, pie in the sky kid dream was like I want to sell out Madison Square Garden and I want to be that person. But I think now as I move through the industry and like of course I had no idea what any of this was like and I still don't, it's not like I don't have a big network and that's something I'm working on, but it's like I think I'd be really happy where my ultimate goal is to focus on music full time. If I could do that, I think I'd be so happy and so grateful because I currently work as a designer. So I have my day job and I do music whenever I can, kind of a thing. And so that's my big next step dream. It's like,
Right.
how can I transition this to a full-time career? Um, whether that's doing more writing and doing that for other people. Do I want to be the person who's on stage? Yes, but what does that look like? I don't know, but I think that's something I'm definitely striving for.
Right.
For sure. I guess to close everything out, if you were to give yourself, like, get your younger self some advice, or even just like an aspiring artist, whether that be male or female, um, as somebody who's just starting out, what kind of advice would you give them?
Okay. Um, I would say just commit to something. Because I think at the beginning or like if you're nervous about sharing music or any kind of art that you're creating, make the leap and if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. There's going to be so many other opportunities for you to one learn from that and then try again. And I also think um, I am very big on like trying to educate yourself. I do the classes online, like any kind of guerrilla learning I can get, where it's like I have my industry books. I like reading all about it because it's so overwhelming to just think like, I'm going to upload something to Spotify and I'm going to make it. You're probably not. There's so many like resources online that you can grab. I love all the YouTube videos on like how the algorithms work, like how to contact people. Like I have just been starting to make friends online and trying to figure out like, I can be kind of a nobody or someone who doesn't have a team and contact a producer. And if they like me enough, I could forge a new relationship with that person. So I think the advice is to go for it, something that I am still trying to take my own advice of. Um, and I think you'll be surprised of who wants to support you. I think here's the biggest thing I've learned, which I guess I would want to pass on as well. It's like I love the art part. I love creating. I love making things. I love sharing things. I don't necessarily like selling myself. And I don't like the push of like, I personally feel annoying. I'm like, here's my song again. It's been out for 6 months. Well, you should listen. It makes me so uncomfortable. I'm sitting with it. I'm working through that. But I think what's interesting is everyone around you is so busy. They are not even paying attention to you. You better be pushing that because they need the reminder and they want the reminder. People want to be included in your journey if they want to be a fan of you, if they want to be part of like what you're building, and they want those reminders. So don't sell yourself short. Don't feel like you're annoying. Go for it. Keep pushing it on people and just try to learn as much as you can. Those
That's
are my
actually really
three
good
things.
advice.
Yeah, that's great advice. All right.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, we're really excited to see
Absolutely.
what you do in the future and everything.
mhm.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I
Yeah,
love
of
talking about
course.
music. I love talking about art. I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome. All right. Well, you have a great night.
Thank you. You too.
They write songs about postcards and poetry too. I thought if I moved to this city